Welcome everybody to this video. Today we'll be looking at a video from Paul Burtwell interviewing Frank Turek. Why do you think God exists and Christianity is true? So the portion that we're looking at today is just the first portion that, or the title of the video, but it's what they talk about is the top 3 arguments for the existence of God. So I'll just be sharing some of my thoughts on the video and hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it.
So if I were a person investigating the existence of God today, what would be your top 3 arguments or evidences for the existence of God?
Typically, the ones that I provide on a college campus are the 3 that you're familiar with, being part of reasonable faith. The one that William Lane Craig has made famous in recent years, the past 40 or so years, the cosmological argument, which goes back to the beginning of the universe. If there was a beginning to the universe, there must be a beginner. The second argument is the design argument, or the teleological argument. The universe is designed, it appears to be fine-tuned, and life appears to be designed as well. And the third argument is the moral argument, that if there's one thing morally wrong out there, Paul, there's got to be a standard beyond us, which would be God's nature, that defines what goodness is, and any deviation from that standard would be evil.
Sure.
Say, if torturing babies for fun is wrong, then God exists, because he is the standard by which we can judge torturing babies for fun is wrong. If there's no God, if there's no purpose to life, if there's no meaning, if there's no immaterial standard of justice, then you can't say torturing babies for fun, or racism is wrong, or slavery is wrong, or Nazism is wrong, or any of these things. You can only say that if God exists. And of course, your own C.S. Lewis did that brilliantly. He pointed that out in Mere Christianity and the Abolition of Man. But if you add the 3 arguments up, Paul, the cosmological, teleological, and moral arguments, you wind up getting the attributes of a theistic God without opening any religious document. You get a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent, moral creator who created and sustains all things.
Yeah, so I think what he's referring to there's a scripture, Romans 1, I think it's verse 20, where it says that, I'm not going to quote it exactly right, but basically what it says is God created everything and that man is without excuse. So when you look at everything, that the unseen that created the seen things, when you look at the seen things, it kind of points towards an unseen God that made it, and then men are without excuse. So everything in the world, even if based on evidence you say you don't believe, Romans 1 verse 20 says you are without excuse because the evidence is all around us.
And you haven't even opened any religious document. You're getting this from what Dr. William Lane Craig would call natural theology, right? You're getting the fact that the universe had a beginning, it appears to be designed, life is designed, and there's a moral standard out there. You're getting that just all from observing the world around you and observing the moral law within. You don't need any religious document to tell you these things. Now, it turns out it does line up with religious documents, particularly the Bible, but you can arrive at those conclusions without any reference to any Bible or religious book.
It's amazing. I was raised in what I would call an atheistic or agnostic home. My parents, it's not that we didn't believe in God, we just didn't talk about God. God just didn't come up. We never attended church unless it's a funeral or a wedding. And at the age of 16, I can remember being out on the soccer field, the school soccer field, and we were kicking the ball around. And I looked up. That's what kind of brought me to a personal faith in God. I looked up at the sky, and the sky was covered in stars. And it dawned on me at that moment that all of this either came from nothing or it came from something that existed prior to, or causally prior to the universe itself. And it was then that dawned on me that God must exist. Paul speaks something similar to this in Romans 1, that everybody's without excuse, for natural revelation, natural creation is revealed to all of mankind. So,
now I think what Paul Burtwell experienced there is the Creator revealing himself to him, and I think this is the danger of someone who wants to believe in God or the existence of God but needs evidence for that. This is the danger thereof. Now, if I had to give you evidence today of, or as Dr. Frank Turek and all these great apologists do, they give evidence for God, for the existence of God. Now, it might take you to that place where, if you believed in the evidence that was presented, it might take you to that place where you could say, okay, so then God must exist because the evidence shows that. Well, tomorrow someone else might say something different, or from their point of view, have evidence to disprove the existence of God. And then you say, oh, well, now it can't be true because there's evidence that shows to the contrary. Which, if we want people to believe based on evidence alone, that's not really a basis for Christianity. Now, what Paul Burtwell here kind of just explained was him looking up and seeing the stars, and he said, well, it's either nothing or God created it. That is that moment where he experienced what it is like to say, when an ordinary Christian says, well, I can't explain to you what it is about Christianity or what it is about God that makes me believe. I just believe. I know there's and almost want to say an instinctive, I don't want to say something because there's an answer for it, but there's this deep connection at that moment that Paul had with the Creator, where he revealed himself to Paul and said, this is who I am. And he in that moment said, I believe. And going back to the scripture of Romans 1, where it says, the evidence is all around us, and we are without excuse, because in creation, God himself is in creation. That's John 1, where it says that I think it's John 1, where it says God fills everything with himself. Well, John 1 says that nothing that was made without God, without the Word, which is Christ, which is Jesus. So God being in everything, and God being in us, whether we want to believe it, whether we believe it or not, that the Spirit that created everything is inside his creation, which includes us. And there's that moment where that deep called to the deep, where what is inside of us reached out to God. And at that moment, it was like a connection where it just says, yep, I take it, I believe it. Let's hear what Paul has to say.
For me personally, I can really appreciate the value of the cosmological argument. And as you've mentioned, Dr. William Lane Craig has formalized this into something called the Kalam Cosmological Argument, which is now one of my favorite arguments. Could you go through the Kalam with us and explain it in detail for our UK viewers?
Sure. The Kalam says that everything that has a beginning has a cause. The universe had a beginning, therefore the universe had a cause, and it turns out that cause is God. And even atheists today are admitting that the universe, space-time and matter, had a beginning out of nothing. Stephen Hawking, who probably was the top, at least well-known physicist in the world until he died a few years ago, and he was an atheist, he said that almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang, that literally there was a creation event. Now, Hawking tried to come up with another explanation other than God. He failed. In fact, Hawking's explanation in one of the last books he ever wrote, which was called The Grand Design, he says this on page 181. He says, because there's a law like gravity, the universe can and will create itself out of nothing. To which your own John Lennox, who's a brilliant philosopher and mathematician from Oxford University there in the UK, said, when brilliant scientists say nonsense, it's still nonsense. So he was saying that about Hawking, who said a law like gravity. First of all, there was no gravity. And secondly, gravity doesn't create things. Gravity just does the same thing over and over again. So gravity couldn't have created us. Gravity itself needed creation.
Yeah, that's like looking at a beautiful painting and say, well, nobody could have made that. So looking at the design of the universe, you see it, it's all around us, but you just say, nope, must have come from nothing.
And so the interesting thing about the cosmological argument for me, Paul, is that when you unpack it, it gives you more attributes of God than any other argument. Because if space-time and matter had a beginning out of nothing, which even atheists are admitting, then it seems to me whatever created space-time and matter must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal in order to choose to create, because impersonal forces can't choose anything, and to go from a state of nothingness to a state of creation, someone had to make a choice, and only persons do that.
Sure.
The being would also have to be intelligent to have a mind to make a choice. And so I always ask people, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause, who do you think of? God. Yeah.
Sure,
Well, how do you know
sure sounds like God.
My answer is always, we don't know it's the Christian God yet. We haven't done enough research yet. But if we keep looking at evidence, particularly the evidence for Jesus, we're going to realize that the same being that walked out of the tomb 1,987 years ago is the same being in whose divine nature created the universe out of nothing. So the cosmological argument basically just says if something had a beginning, it needs a cause. And since the universe had a beginning, then it needs a cause as well. And that cause has to be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, and intelligent.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Frank.
Yeah, so there we have it. Top 3 arguments for the existence of God. And just to reiterate, I think, on my point where I said that evidence alone is not the basis of Christianity, although it I personally don't even need to have the evidence for what I believe in. And you might say that sounds crazy, but it's not, because I think under the surface, under the things that are seen, there is the unseen, which to me is the basis of Christianity. Is faith is seeing that which is not seen, which is believing in that which is not seen, which is Hebrews 11, which is like I call it faith scripture, faith chapter, whatever, is believing in that which is not seen. Faith is the evidence. So yeah, that is how we Christians live by. We live by faith, not by the things which are seen. But I do think it is important to, as a Christian, if somebody comes up to me who's an atheist, who says, well, I don't believe in God, do you have the evidence for God? I think it hurts more the person when we say, no, I don't. Well, you just have to believe because, well, what else do we do? I think we're not helping ourselves in that situation where we say, well, we don't know. So I think it's good to equip ourselves with the knowledge of being able to, when someone says, well, where's the evidence? It's good to equip ourselves with knowledge like this. But yeah, there we go. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I will be uploading a lot more videos like this, and we'll see you on the next one.